For each application, I will ask Mr Dawson, who sat next to me, who's the head of planning, to introduce the item. We will then have any public speakers, and in fact I think we have public speakers on every item on the application, so for each one we'll have at least one public speaker. We will then have, if necessary, the ward members speak. I will then move the recommendation, which then opens the debate. Councillors on the committee will debate it, and we will then take a vote at the end of the meeting, either to approve or to refuse planning permission. Okay, so that is the programme. Before I go through the agenda fully, I do think it's right that we should congratulate Mr Dawson on being made the permanent head of planning. So congratulations, Ryan, and very well done.
Well done, Ryan.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll go to the agenda then. Item 1, apologies for absence and attendance of substitutes. Councillor Carr.
So apologies for Councillor Richard Robinson, and I'm substituting.
Thank you very much. Other than that, I think we're all present. Okay, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. None. Okay, thank you. Item 3, minutes. So the minutes of the last meeting are set out on pages 3 to 30 of the agenda. I shall move these as a true and correct record.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pringle.
I think there's a mistake on the minutes. They state it's agenda item 5.3, when actual fact it was agenda item 4.3. Due to knowing the applicant, I believe it was not the applicant, but it was the person that was objecting to the
One on the minutes, Dave.
on page 3.
Right, thank you very much. Let me just do a check. You're absolutely right, it was knowing the objector.
And it was item 4.3.
Thank you very much. Okay. Subject to those, everyone happy that I sign these as a true and correct record? Can I see all in favour, please? Thank you very much. That is carried. I shall make that amendment and sign them as we go through the meeting. Item 4 on the agenda is notification of lobbying. So lobbying of councillors is a perfectly normal part of the planning process, but because we want everything to be absolutely open and above board, we do just ask members to notify the committee if they have been lobbied. There is a form that people fill in, and if you could mention when you speak that you have been lobbied, then it's absolutely open, everyone knows. I'll just say that for my part, I've been lobbied on the first application, which I suspect we all have, and that's the only one that I've been lobbied on this this agenda. Okay, so we now move on to the actual items themselves. So item 5.1 is to construct a 3 and 4 storey building comprising 9 apartments, and this is use class C4, and provision of parking area. This is 129 to 131 the High Road, Beeston. Many of us will know it as the old King's Carpets shop. So Mr Dawson, would you like to introduce this to us, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, many of you saw this on site earlier. Construction 3 and 4 storey building, 9 apartments, which are use seat class C4, provision of 8 parking spaces, cycle spaces and bin store areas, replacing the existing car pit shop that's on site at the moment. So 3 and 4 storey brick building in a sort of L shape that wraps the frontage of the corner. 3rd storey set back from the front, and you read the elevation of the building, windows in protecting frames. The best with this one, I think, is actually have a look at the plans and see things on the PowerPoint and actually me describe the design. We've had no stakeholder objections. We're happy with the parking vision as it's a town centre location. It's right on the edge of the design, the designated boundary of the town centre. But particularly when you consider the relevant commentary in the MPPF on transport and other forms of transport available and the proximity of the university to the town. The design was originally met with sort of stern opposition from certain quarters, and we've worked with the applicant to try and amend the design and in our view improve the appearance of the building and the street scene. We have several objections here, many of which are based on the scale of development, the impact on amenity, and the fact that there should be family or other accommodation not for students. And members are no doubt aware that we can't condition or specify the building's end user in that regard. We are comfortable with the scale in considering the site's location. We are aware that this scheme would have an impact, but considering there's a 32-metre distance between the property in Senior Avenue and the rear elevation of this property here, we're comfortable it will have an impact, not detrimental impact in that respect. There are several late items on this which have been put before you. I'm not going to go through all of them because a lot are in the report. But please, can you make reference to the late items as well, please? As I said, lots of objections to this and a lot in the report. Nothing further. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So we do have speakers both for and against this. So if I turn now firstly to Mr. Lee Howell, have I pronounced that correctly? Thank you very much. Normally we have a seat. Oh, great. If you'd like to come forward to that microphone just in front of you. Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't see it. It was behind Councillor Owen. Okay. And if when you're ready you'd like to press the right hand button on the microphone, that will turn it on. Yep, lovely. So that's on. You've got 3 minutes. I'll give you a prompt about 30 seconds before the end, if that's okay.
Okay.
So you know it's time to start winding up. And sir, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Just to maybe introduce myself, I'm not a scrupulous sort of developer who does this day to day. It's something which over the last few years I've become more and more interested in getting involved with. This project, initially, I looked at it to possibly rent the property as it stood for a couple of the businesses that I actually own, and unfortunately, commercially, it wasn't viable as a retail unit, and also we've got this bakery cafe that we were looking to maybe look at it, and it just wouldn't work. So after those initial sort of thoughts, we looked at the idea of maybe posting it to develop it. As we started to progress through the project, I sort of got a very clear sort of remit from my perspective to what I was expecting from it, and it was sort of sitting under commercial viability, making it fit for purpose, and then also making sure it's got longevity. Quickly, like to take you through those commercially. A lot of the ideas and thoughts, and I do understand, people's thoughts that why can't we just do X and Y with the building. The building itself is aesthetically very pretty. I quite like it. Unfortunately, when you go inside the building, you only have to look out the windows from the outside. There's a lot of repair and work that needs to be done in the building. Hence the reason why it sits there, and it wasn't something that was picked up very quickly by someone to take on a lease basis. So there's definitely work that needs to be done. In terms of commerciality, for me, I felt that by offering a student accommodation in that location, because of its proximity to the university, it could be fit for purpose and help resolve a major issue which is obviously bubbling within Beeston, and we've seen it through Nottingham City. Lenton comes to mind, and the idea is by developing this property out, we can create a property where students are comfortable, they want to live there, and hopefully it will promote the city and the town of Beeston itself. The way I feel it helps the solution, to the problem that we've got a lot of obviously private residentials which are used as HMOs at the moment, and funny enough, I've got a friend who lives only 2 doors away from a HMO, and you only have to listen to some of the stories that he has about students who will.
Okay, you've got about 30 seconds left, sir.
Oh, that quick! Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The thing is, the problems that they have, the issues that they've got, by bringing it more centrally into one location. Because I'm not looking to sell this property, I want to manage it, I can look after it, and I can do it justice, and make sure that the local residents' issues are looked after. We're talking about noise, rubbish, governance, even making sure that no car parking issues are, at the moment I know there's concerns about the car parking. Our plan is to, right from the offset in our brochure, to make very clear that there is no car parking permits for students. And I think that's very important, because students...
Can I ask you to start winding up now?
Yeah, because they are young, and if we can tell them the rules right from the offset, unlike those private HMOs where, you know, you don't have any governance, we'll be able to make sure that they don't, well, at least we're not advocating them bringing their cars in. It's just a shame that I can't talk you through it in detail because there's a lot of thought that I've gone into it. I'm personally going to be hands-on in terms of management with my team, and it's not just going to be left to sort of just left as a student sort of issue, so it becomes a problem for the residents nearby.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm going to have to ask you to stop there.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thank you very much. If you'd like to take your seat again, thank you very much. We turn now to Mr. Bostock. Once Mr. Lee has taken his seat, if you take, well, let us wipe it down and then. I beg your pardon. Thank you. So thank you, Alderman Bostock. So exactly the same applies, and I'll have the same flexibility on times, and I'll give you a prompt about 30 seconds before the end.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, sir. So the floor is yours.
My objections to this application are threefold. One, the size, design and nature of the proposed development. Two, the effect it will have on the local neighbourhood. And three, the effect on the wider area. The application states that the building will comprise 9 apartments. This is misleading as the plans show it will actually consist of 54 rather small bedrooms in 9 clusters of 6 with a central area. This takes the concept of 9 apartments beyond the realms of incredulity. The height of the building is also an issue. At 3 to 4 stories, it will overwhelm the nearby properties on Marlborough Road and at Cedar Avenue. In fact, the design of the building is completely out of keeping with other buildings in the area. Car parking is another concern. The development allows for 8 cars. Where are the others going to park? Experience has shown us, from a new development nearby, Dagford Park, what happens when insufficient arrangements are made for car parking. A recipe for disaster. Students do have cars. Marlborough Road is out of the question. It is a long, straight, narrow, busy road with many residents having to park on the road as they do not have driveways. At certain times of the day, the volume of traffic here can be quite an issue. There is no way that residents in this development area can park here without causing immense problems. In fact, a development like this one will have an adverse effect on the local infrastructure and services, and no thought has been given to the feelings of the local residents. As regards the local residents, the developers accept that, yes, there are residents on Marlborough Road, but state that actually the development is on the high road, which is commercial, not residential. This is not exactly true when the plans show that the development goes round the corner and right up to the first 2 houses on Marlborough Road. In recent years, there have been a number of similar developments in this area of Beeston between Marlborough Road and the Broxtowe city boundary, including Broadgate Park and the recently completed and opened Dagford Park developments. Another block of apartments will be a development too far in what is primarily a residential area. There could also be issues with noise and antisocial behaviour.
You've got about 30 seconds left.
Thank you. The proposed development will be out of keeping with the general look and ambience of the area and be a blot on the landscape. I am strongly of the opinion that it will have an adverse effect on the town and that the council should not agree to it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to take your seat again. And I'll turn now to Councillor Barbara Carr as the ward councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David. Right, I'd like to speak against this application as well. First of all, Mr Bostock's already mentioned this. I want members to be absolutely 100% clear. This is not an application for 9 apartments. There will be 54 bedrooms and therefore potentially 54 residents in this development with a maximum of 8 parking spaces and a number of cycle racks. Now, the main issue here is if you look at page 31, specifically part of point 1.4, the argument in favour of it is that it will allow for less pressure on C3 dwellings to be occupied as a C4 usage. And therefore that outweighs the potential impact, which they have acknowledged there will be an impact on the amenity and on the actual road traffic. My view is this, that we've seen time and time again at this committee, and members will be well aware, that the creep of HMO developments in this area of the borough is continuing. And I don't think that by building a custom-made block of 54 bedrooms, likely to be students, it's not sensible to state that other landlords are going to come along and say, well, actually, we don't need to convert our residential properties into a student accommodation because we've got plenty of it, because it continues to happen. And there's plenty more applications in the pipeline, which is why we're introducing an Article 4, hopefully, in the next few months. So that principle is unsound in its conclusions, in my opinion. And then looking at the traffic situation, it's built on the corner of 2 very busy roads, High Street and Marlborough Road, or it will be built there. It's a high density proposal. The rooms are very small, although they're within scale, I believe, for such a development. And there is little outdoor amenity provided. So regardless of how much people think that people will come here and use the tram, the bus, cycle, people do bring their cars. Students bring their cars with them. We know this, again, as Mr Bostock has said, from the developments that we've had in place recently in Dagford Park and Broadgate Park, where 220 plus students we agreed to house them without any parking. Many of them now bring their cars with them and have parked on Kenilworth Road, Peveril Road and all the surrounding areas. And they don't just park there, they leave them for days, weeks and months on end, causing absolute mayhem for the long-suffering residents of the area. And I can guarantee this is one of the worst places I can think of to put more strain on our residential roads. It's already used as a cut-through from Woolerton Road to avoid the Beeston Town Centre traffic lights. So I think it's a really bad place in that respect. And as regards the amenity, I don't think it's a brilliant design. The size, the siting and the design should make a positive contribution to the area and the appearance, not be over prominent in the street scene. And I think a 3 to 4 storey building in this area will dominate the street scene and adversely affect the amenity of other residents, to the point where I think these 2 issues alone actually exceed what have been laid down in front of us as being the benefits. I don't think those benefits are in fact as beneficial as they're made out to be, because I don't think it will happen that people will just stop building and stop converting their residential properties into HMOs because of this. So I hope that you will appreciate my comments there, and I'd ask you to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, the recommendation is on page 43, which is to grant planning permission. So I shall move that recommendation to open the debate.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I'll now open it for comments, questions and observations. And Councillor Steve Carr.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, yet again, it's one of these cases where, I mean, I wished quite honestly that I had £10 for every time I've sat in this committee to be told that if we built something purpose-built to house students, then it'll stop private family houses being converted into HMOs, because the empirical evidence is, Mr Chairman, that is not the case. We have Broadgate Park, we have Dagford school site, we have other, there's one on Queen's Road as well that's just been built, and yet the pressures on our family housing stock in Beeston remain the same, and we continue to see the drift of HMOs into the area. I'm astounded yet again that the county highways have no objection to this. And I do wonder whether people at the county highways department do actually talk to each other, because I have been in conversations with them probably for the last 3 years about the parking problems of Peveril Road and Marlborough Road in particular, which has been compounded recently by the fact that the 225 dwellings that were built on the old Dagford House School without any parking spaces have recently been filled after being empty due to the COVID. And it has been a nightmare for the people that live on those roads. Cars appear, are left for weeks and weeks and weeks. And we had a street meeting there a few weeks ago. The management company UPP attended, Nottingham University attended, the police attended, and they all agreed it was a problem, and it's a problem that's been caused by students bringing their cars. And there's absolutely no doubt that that is the case. With regards to amenity, the residents that live at 2 and 4 Marlborough Road and 1 and 3 Cedar Avenue, and particularly number 1 Cedar Avenue, and I understand that that was visited today, and it's what, the 23rd of June, so 2 days after the longest day of the year. And number 1 Cedar Avenue is already, at this time of the year, 50% of their garden is in shade. So with another 2 stories going on the property behind them, then that is going to have a huge impact on that garden. And it just isn't fair to those people that have been living there for a long time. And so I am totally against this application, Chair, and urge the committee to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Grindell and then Councillor Handley. So, Councillor Grindell.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, yes, we did go for a site visit this afternoon, actually, and we looked at the main building. I wasn't happy, to be honest, with the designs which we had in our packs. It didn't look good. We went round to Cedar Avenue, Chair, and which was number 1, which takes you to the back of the original building. And if you're going to put 2 stories on top of that, obviously there's going to be no light at all. Obviously there's going to be windows in the walls at the back that whatever type of windows there are, frosted or not, I'm not sure. So that doesn't look good. Secondly, the lady, as Councillor Carr said, will get no sunlight at all. And the design of the actual building, Chair, is well, it needs this particular application needs throwing out. I don't want to see this passed tonight. This has to come back in another form, because that's how strongly I feel about it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Handley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief on this because a lot has been said already. I think that we should actually turn this down tonight and ask the developer to go back to the drawing board in terms of the size, the height, the design and the layout. The loss of amenity in terms of the residents at 1 and 3 Cedar Avenue. As Councillor Steve Carr said, we went this afternoon. It was late afternoon. We are at the height of summer in terms of the level of the sun, and the garden was already at least half in shade. As the sun moves further away, they will get no light whatsoever, hardly, and to put that building there would be a travesty and a complete loss of amenity in terms of light and overlooking for these people. My recommendation to my colleagues, and certainly what I will be doing, is to ask to turn this down and ask them to go back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have to say sorry to Mr. Lee Hall, but I agree entirely with what you said, that this scheme is just the wrong design in the wrong place. It's too big. I think your architects have produced something that is very unattractive, and the impact on the neighbours would be immense. So I'm afraid to say I couldn't support this either. Okay, Councillor Ball.
Yeah, just very quickly, I'm not going to support this, but I would wish the architects would go back down there and have a look down High Street and have a look at the other buildings, because some of those buildings, the apex, are absolutely lovely, and I'm sure that if they could do something better, anybody better than that they're presenting to us. The other thing that I have to say, Chair, I was surprised what a big shop that had been. I mean, really and truthfully, I can't see anybody taking it on again as a commercial shop or anything. But I just think something better could be done with it. And I think you should take notice of what you've got in Beeston, because some of those buildings are absolutely lovely. And if you could replicate those, I'm sure it would be better. And the other thing, I have to say this, Chair, I know you've heard me say it before, I have a 20-year-old grandson that's come up from Kent, who is at Nottingham University, who doesn't have a car, and thinks Beeston is wonderful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well, he's right on that. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to say anything? If not, it's been moved and seconded. So can I see all those in favour of granting planning permission? No, and those against? And I'm afraid that is unanimously rejected. Thank you very much. I'll then move an alternative recommendation that planning permission be refused. If I can read Mr. Dawson's handwriting, due to the overdevelopment of the plot, the detriment to amenity of nearby properties, and the design being out of keeping with the area. So I'll move that as a recommendation.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. And can I see all those in favour? Thank you very much. So planning permission there is refused. Okay, thank you very much. If we can swap round people now, and we'll get people in for the next application. Okay, so we move on then to item 5.2. This is Watnall Disposal Point, Main Road, Watnall, and the application is proposed alterations to the site access roadway, improvements to the main road junction, alterations to the existing coal stockyard, site entrance, and new commercial development comprising B1C, B2 and B8 units, with associated roadways, hard standing and landscaping. So I'll hand over to Mr. Dawson to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. Again, we saw this on site earlier. It's an existing employment site where they're proposing B1C, B2 and B8 units. And for those of you unsure what the classes say, that's light industry, general industry and storage and distribution. Major application seeks consent to redevelop part of the site for new commercial development, a mixture of those uses I've just described. Application also proposes alterations to the site access roadway, improvements to the main road junction, and alterations to the existing coal stockyard entrance. The new access arrangement near the main road in Watnall, highways believe is a betterment for the area. The highways issues and concerns have been addressed within part 6.3 of the report, and submitted transport assessment, so this information suggests this is not an issue. So I'll refer you to that, please. The principle's accepted. It's been allocated local plan for several years, so for employment. So just these sort of issues regarding design and access, etc. The new units total 9,475 metres squared. The demand for cold storage over the years has declined, hence there's a need to diversify. We're generally happy with the traditional and simple design proposed for the buildings, and considering where they're located, there's no immediate issues as they're located well back into the site. The other thing I say is look at the plans, please, with regards to the access road, which widens at the front, runs at the back, and it's traffic lit, my understanding, on the actual road itself, not the main road itself. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now we have a speaker here, Mr. Holhouse. Thank you very much. So if you'd like to come forward to the seat in front of you, which has got the microphone on, Mr. Holhouse is the applicant. And take the seat, that's it. And once you're ready, if you press the button on the right on the microphone, that should switch it on. And as with the previous application, you've got 3 minutes, and I'll give you a prompt about 30 seconds from the end. Okay, thank you. So the floor is yours.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Charles Holhouse, the Managing Director of Fernwood Group, based locally in Watnall. To give you a little background history, Fernwood Fuels purchased its coal stocking yard in Watnall in 1985, and it's remained in our ownership since then. Prior to Fernwood acquiring the site, it had been used by the National Coal Board and also used for coal stocking and distribution. Fernwood's use of the site has continued in the same manner for coal stocking and distribution, and we have an excellent working relationship with Broxtowe Environmental Health Team through our EPA, Environmental Protection Act licence, and we have never received any noise or nuisance complaints from local neighbours, even though the site has been operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Historically, millions of tonnes of coal products have been processed from this site, involving substantial numbers of vehicle movements on a daily basis. However, in recent years, demand for coal in both commercial and domestic markets has declined and will continue to decline due to government commitments to climate change and cleaner forms of energy. There is now no longer a need to use the entire site for our fuels business, but we are determined to retain our existing coal stocking and distribution business and preserve existing jobs for as long as is possible, but there is a need to consolidate our operations due to the decline of the coal industry in general. This has given us the opportunity to develop part of the site for wider employment uses long term, whilst retaining our own coal stocking business in the shorter term. It is a win-win situation for both the local community in terms of job creation and new enterprise opportunities, and for ourselves in order to generate additional revenue that we need to supplement the decline for the demand in our coal business. It is also environmentally beneficial that this brownfield site is available for partial redevelopment to enhance employment uses. As a result, Fernwood have lodged this planning application to construct up to 22 light industrial units, which will create further opportunities in the local area. The units vary from small to medium sizes to suit small businesses that are growing or aiming to support new industries, for example, those located at the New East Midlands Gateway Hub at junction 24 of the M1.
You've got about 30 seconds left.
Flexibility has been designed into the scheme to enable businesses to expand and remain on site rather than relocate. Our planning application has been led by a professional team of consultants, and we've been through considerable pre-application discussions with the various authorities to ensure our proposals are robust in terms of highway safety, ecology, sustainable drainage techniques, and satisfying planning policy, which very clearly allocates the site for employment's use. Our highways consultants have undertaken a full transport assessment and road safety audit with full support from Notts County Council Highways Department. We are happy to commit to improving the site entrance with a new bell mouth and intelligent one-way signalling. Space has been created.
Start winding up now.
Okay, we have already had considerable interest from prospective occupiers, and our market research demonstrates there is a need for this size of industrial unit in the locality. It is Fernwood's full intention to retain ownership of the development, and we will continue to invest into our business and into the local economy, as the company has done continuously since it moved to Watnall in 1984. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Okay, if you'd like to take your seat. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, I shall move the recommendation, which is on page 65, to grant planning permission.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. And so I'll now open it for discussion, comments, observations. Councillor Wilmot, you asked for this to come to the agenda, so do you want to go first?
Thank you, Chairman. I am the ward councillor for Watnall, and, well, not to the western Watnall, which I share with Jill Owen. And I know this site well, very well, and visited quite frequently. I really have no objections in principle to the installation of an industrial area on that particular site there. It's a derelict site. It's an eyesore, really. This can only be regarded as an improvement. It's not so long ago that this site was used to store a huge amount of gypsum material, which I believe was a waste product from Ratcliffe-on-Soar Power Station. We called it the Watnall Alps, and we did have an environmental problem with that, which was never solved until the stuff was removed. And by putting this development there, that would prevent anything like that happening again in the future. So, but I do have only one particular concern about this whole proposal, which I wish to have addressed. And it's a very minor concern, but it's important to me, and it's important to the local residents. And that is, we as local residents are not going to get any particular benefit from this proposal, but we were offered one little benefit, and that was a refuge crossing of the Watnall Main Road. And here I refer to a memorandum from County Highways received by Broxtowe Borough Council Planning Department. It's dated the 21st of September, and it's addressed to Mr Darren Otwell, the planning officer. And in this memo it says, central refuges should therefore be made available on both Main Road and site access to reduce the amount of time pedestrians will have to negotiate passing traffic on a live carriageway. Now, I regularly cross the carriageway at that point because I walk down Common Lane, which is slightly to the north of here, and then out onto the bridleway at the far end of Common Lane. And so I cross it at that particular point at least every week, and sometimes twice a week. And that's a very difficult road to cross because you've got to cross the whole road in one go, and it's a busy road. So central refuge to me is an important thing. And then I read in the document here from the planning department, in respect of the provision of a crossing within the carriageway when travelling to from the site, third-party land will be required to construct a suitable crossing. And the Highway Authority advised on this occasion it would not be appropriate to relax current highway design standards to provide this type of feature. Now, what we just heard on another issue that we've got doubts about the performance of Nottinghamshire County Council Highways Department. And here's another example. They're arguing with themselves. One document says you should have a central refuge. Now we're told they advise against it. The other thing is, slightly further up Main Road to the north, there is a central refuge which was put in against originally, it was on the original plans. We were then told it wasn't going to be put in, and then it has been put in, and it's just the kind of refuge that we want in this location, with the same relaxation of standards to allow it to happen. So I want this refuge to be put there. I can support this application, provided I get an assurance that we'll have a central refuge for pedestrians as shown on the original drawings between the two bus shelters, one each side of the road, where people cross. That's my main concern. I can't support this application without that assurance that it's going to be done. if I can be assured it will be done, then I will support the application.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Owen.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would endorse, first of all, what Councillor Willamott has said. For 12 years, I was the county councillor for Watnall, and the biggest complaint that I used to get was the lack of crossing facilities on that main road. And this is an opportunity through this development in order to get that additional facility. So I hope when Mr Dawson is summing up, he can offer us some reassurance that that will be insisted upon, because I think it would improve things for local residents. But I have to dispute the speaker who said there had been no nuisance complaints. As I say, Chairman, I represented the Watnall area for 12 years, and I had umpteen nuisance complaints about heavy goods vehicles from Fernwood Fuels thundering through residential areas. And that is why, and it's referred to in the report, we have got an environmental weight restriction on all of the residential roads in that area, because I had to fight and campaign for it at County Hall, and eventually we got it because the company were unwilling or unable to stop their drivers from making a nuisance of themselves driving through many residential roads. And I was just wondering, and this came to light yesterday at the county's planning committee meeting, whereby the county council, in granting planning permission for a facility at Radcliffe-on-Soar, put on a section 106 notice, or put on a section 106 condition to control the access of vehicles to that particular site. And I wonder if it's worth putting making a section 106 agreement to give a belt and braces job to the environmental weight restriction that already exists there, so that access to this site can only be made from the main roads rather than any other residential road. And the other complaint that I got on many an occasion was the emanation of dust from the site. So I'm glad that a significant part of it is no longer going to be used for coal stocking. But we found, and Councillor Willamott referred to this, that when the coal storage facility was being reduced, using an old planning approval dating back many, many years, which I think was granted probably to the coal board, they were able to import tons and tons of gypsum at that time, creating huge piles which were visible from a considerable distance. And not only that, there was a huge problem with dust. So, Chairman, I would like an additional condition putting on, and I've discussed this with Mr Dawson, and he says that it is perfectly feasible, that we have a condition that says there will be no open storage on that site. Now, if we can have those conditions put on, then like Councillor Willamott, I am prepared to support it, because it's got to be an improvement upon that site. But I think from past experience, I would want to see those conditions put on. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak? My thought on the open storage condition, I can picture many things that can be stored in the open without any problems. And I remember driving up the M1, coming on at Junction 26, and phoning Stephen Saunders, who was in charge of planning in those days, to say, what's this new mountain that's appeared at the side of the M1 when that gypsum appeared. And so I fully understand the desire there. I think the sensible thing to do is to impose such a condition. I'm quite happy to add one, but we do need to be aware that there may well be applications to vary that if there are things being stored that will not have a dust impact. So we just need to have that in mind. as far as the crossing is concerned, that's an extremely good idea. I think, Councillor Wilmot, you've illustrated why we get so frustrated with county highways when the left hand and the right hand are not only not knowing what each other's doing, but giving completely contrary advice. It's not within, though, the planning application site, so I don't think lawfully we can require it as part of this application. But I'm very happy to support attempts for that to happen, which ultimately that comes down to county highway, so they would need to address that, unless Mr Dawson has any other great ideas on that.
Thank you, Chair. I might ask Rosina to come in a minute on the legal thing, if that's all right.
I'll come back very briefly.
Please do, yes.
There's got to be a precedent here on this central refuge, because all you've got to do is look back at the Aerofab application, very recent application, where this council ensured, I've got the wording at home, didn't bring it with me tonight, ensured that the refuge that was there originally and then taken out was put back. It was possible to do it. There is a mechanism. This council has a precedent. So please look at your own records and carry them out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
Yes, I just to back that up, of course, when we gave approval for Carpenter's Court off Hicklings Lane, part of the recommendation was to actually install a pedestrian crossing, and that wasn't within the application area. That was on the highway.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'll go through a few of those comments and ask Rosina to come in if I may. Open storage condition is fairly straightforward. If you want to have an open storage condition to the existing conditions are on there, that's fine. I can come up with the wording from that. That seems quite straightforward. I'll let Rosina deal with the section 6 unilateral comment Councillor Owen raised. The central refuge issue, that's trickier. It's outside the applicant's control. I'm not aware of the issues with regard to the one on Hickings Lane. I'm aware of the fallout because I've been trying to chase to get the money sorted with the with regards to the pedestrian crossing, but I'm not aware how we actually got there. My initial response to that would be that as highways have not asked for it to go in as part of highway safety, it would be wrong of us to insist the developer a condition on insisting that to happen. However, if that does become a deal breaker, it might be worth going back to highways and seeking clarity on that point. But I'd be a little bit reluctant to suggest that we put a condition on if the highways have raised objections and their comments have been on the access road and everything else, because I think that might be on the control of the committee, and I'll get Rosina to come in on that as well. So my suggestion would be that the open storage condition is okay, but I think central refuge you might struggle with. Whilst I take the arguments on board and to the access there, it's with if the highways had come back and said we have to happen to make it safe for the development, and therefore the road needs to be improved or widened, etc. They haven't. They've come back and said make the bell mouth and make the road wider to make visibility suitable for that access. And so that'd be my only concern. Actually, might be going beyond what we're allowed to do. But if you're right, Rosina, I'll ask you to come in on that if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. That's okay with you, Jen? Yes, please do. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I would totally agree with Ryan's comments about the refuge. We would rather go back at this point to the highways department, consult with them, have the necessary conversations with them, rather than potentially refuse this application on that basis, because then we've got all sorts of costs. With regards to Councillor Owen, your comment about Section 106, possibly not Section 106, but unilateral undertaking, which again is probably going to be the correct document to reflect what we want from that.
That's fine, Chairman. I'm happy to accept.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wilmot.
Fine, but can I please request that my statement about this refuge be properly minuted, so there's a record of that, and if there's any comeback, we did try to achieve what was necessary for our own people.
Yes. Well, I think the appropriate way is to defer the application today to the next meeting, so that we can get that answer and we can be absolute. So I'll move that we defer the decision tonight.
I'll second that, Chair. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Anybody want to say anything on that before we take a vote on it? Councillor Jackson.
Condition for a refuge that says with the agreement, conditions it with the agreement of the Highways Authority. If there's any safety reason why it can't be put in, they can say no and we'll have to accept it. But I don't think there will be from what they've said previously.
To make sure that we had something that was legally watertight. That's what concerns me. I think it's something we could think about for the future to have a standard form of wording like that, but trying to do it tonight I think would be a risk. I think it'd be safer to defer this to the next meeting. Okay. And to the applicants, please be assured you're pushing at an open door, but we just want to make sure we get the conditions right. Okay. So anybody else want to say anything on deferring? No, in which case, can I see all those in favour? Thank you very much. And that is deferred then to the next meeting. So I'm sorry we can't give you a decision tonight, but that'll be at the next meeting on the 7th of July. Okay, thank you very much. No. Okay, thank you. So that item's finished. If we can swap people around, then we'll then move next on to 18 Bramcote Drive. Okay, I think everyone's in place. So we move on then to item 5.3, which is 18 Bramcote Drive in Beeston. This is an application to demolish the existing dwelling and construct 2 new dwellings. Mr Dawson, we'd like to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. There are no late items on this item agenda. Most of the people I was on site earlier. Demolition of the existing bungalow that's there. The proposal to erect 2 dwellings in its place. Both the new dwellings are detached dwellings, 5-bedroom detached properties with garages, modern design with asymmetrical roofs. Again, you'd better have a look at the plans than me trying to describe the design to you, but it's a modern design. There's a mixture of materials throughout. We're generally happy with the principle, and whilst there are obviously changes in height, we're comfortable with this, and we don't believe that keeping the area. And the amenity argument, 6.4 of the report. Most of the projection proposed is forward of number 20, which is number 20 Bramcote Drive, not the rear. But as it's a single story, we consider this acceptable. The upper floor windows on the side facing number 20 serve stairs and will be obscurely glazed, so there's an issue of overlooking there. All the other windows face the rear garden. The other properties that raise concerns are the other side of Winchester Avenue, and there's a gap of the road obviously in between them, so we think that reduces the impact of development on their amenity. There's access off Bramcote Drive directly, there's plenty of parking on site, and also members should note, please, some of the sustainability credentials proposed in 6.6 of the report. We recommend approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have 2 public speakers on this. So firstly, Mrs Asano, who's in position, and then we will have Mr Ronald. So is it Mrs or
Miss?
Miss, I beg your pardon. So Miss Asano, who's the applicant. As for the previous people, you've got about 3 minutes. I think the microphone's gone off, so if you can press the button on the right, that's it, that's on. So you've got 3 minutes. I'll give you. Yeah, that's on. I can see the light. I'll give you a prompt about 30 seconds from the end. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Danielle. That's Rich. We've lived in Beeston all our adult lives with 2 young sons, and schools and nurseries are walking distance away. We're an honest, hard-working family with a vision to create 2 sustainable houses, one of which will be our forever home, so we can see our family grow up in this lovely neighbourhood. After a very long search, we purchased in 2017 and planned to extend and renovate. Taking early planning advice, we were told our large corner plot, surrounded by a range of properties, periods and heights, gave us a broad scope for development. We commissioned our designer, Tracy Clegg, having learnt she was behind many successful residential developments. Her projects are attractive and always complementary to the area. Having designed over 52 new builds in Beeston alone, she's very experienced with local planning policy and comes highly recommended. Who better? With global warming, we all need to do our bit for the environment. Despite setting out to remodel, we were advised rebuilding was the best way to achieve a modern, sustainable, energy-efficient home. Creating a second home would also put our generous space to good use. There's a national housing shortage, and we knew from our own search there's a need for modern family houses in Beeston. Our site already had previous planning approval for a second dwelling. This proposal is much better. It replaces existing outbuildings, leaving the large back garden untouched and keeps the expansive green space for wildlife. It also retains the open nature of the site at the front, the back and along Winchester. These individually designed homes, made with high quality materials, will complement styles around the neighbourhood. By selecting Woodland Builders, a local firm with an outstanding reputation, we hope to give our neighbours peace of mind. This project will be professionally managed, with consideration for them and with the highest quality finish. We've appointed local experts and taken advice from qualified professionals every step of the way, so it's no surprise our application adheres to local plans and policies. We've listened to feedback from neighbours and made adjustments to the scheme. We all know flood risk is extremely important. However, as it's a matter for building regulations, I'll not address it now, except to say the overall management of rainwater on our site will be considerably improved by the scheme. All objections have been addressed in the report, and we're delighted to read, quote, there are considered to be no negative impacts and it would be unreasonable to refuse planning permission. In conclusion, I'll again quote the planning officer. Overall, it's considered that the proposal is acceptable and that planning permission should be granted. Whilst change isn't always comfortable, you can't plant new seeds without disturbing the soil. We love these homes. They're thoughtfully designed, they're within all regulations, and they will make a fantastic addition to the Beeston community. We hope you agree. Thank you for considering our application.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to take a seat at the back, thank you. And turn now to Mr. Ronald, who is objecting. Mr. Ronald, if you'd like to take the seat. Exactly the same applies, that you've got 3 minutes from when you start. I'll give you a prompt towards the end. If you could just press the button on the right. That's it. So the microphone's now on. So, sir, you have 3 minutes and the floor is yours.
I am speaking for all the objectors. I have their agreement. My name is Norman Ronald. I have lived opposite the proposed development. Norman Ronald. I live opposite the proposed development. I have lived there since October 1974, which gives me a good knowledge of the local area. The main objections are as follows. Height is the main issue. The proposed development at a ground level is approximately 1 metre higher than properties on the opposite side of Bramcote Drive, meaning the 8.7 metres becomes 9.7 when compared with surrounding properties, causing shadowing and dominating the 6 immediate surrounding smaller homes. No height comparison was given for all these homes. The shadowing visuals did not show the real impact and were of very poor quality. Overdevelopment of the site is another real concern, and loss of garden land. Drainage and sewerage, where I appreciate is not planning, but Broxtowe County Council have the responsibility to maintain the health of its citizens. Additional construction of property in recent years has caused strain on the existing system. Properties opposite the proposed development have all experienced blocked sewage pipes during heavy rainstorms, and flash floodings due to surface water runoffs is also a major concern. We sympathise with the applicant and would all support one property, two-storey building of the same floor area they are achieving with 3 storeys. Loss of visibility on the corner, does not maintain streetscape, prominent corner, size and height out of keeping. If the development goes ahead in its present form, we believe it will be to the detriment of the 6 surrounding homes. And finally, I thank you for listening to our objections.
Thank you very much. Again, if you'd like to take a seat at the back, thank you very much. And thank you to both sides for being very succinct in your comments. Okay, now the recommendation is on page 90 to grant planning permission. I shall move the recommendation.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much, and I'll open it for comments, questions, observations. Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. I'm the ward councillor for the area. There are indeed actually a range of houses and house types along Bramcote Drive, and I guess in my opinion this is completely in keeping with the range of properties that you already see there. It's not unsympathetic to the styles or indeed neighbouring properties at all. And as we've already heard, of course, there is, not in every case, but in this case, there is ample space for this development to take place. I think one of the nice touches, incidentally, is the fact that the applicants have stated, of course, that they are living here in one of those properties, and as such I think there's kind of an inbuilt inherent interest to get it right and to make good the design and the build, not just for them but for their neighbours as well into the future. So in that sense I've got no objections to this application at all, and I'll be supporting it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grindell.
Thank you, Chair. Well, actually, this is a good application. Looking at some little areas as we did this afternoon, then obviously you're looking at the corner of the junction. I cannot see a problem being there or being over height or overgrown. The height of the buildings themselves are quite fine as you go around the corner. We went right round, had a good look, and it is a good application, and the applicant has put a very good case together. I see no problem with this, and I shall certainly be asking for you to take a vote on this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was struck when we went round about the amount of space that there was there. I have to say, I think that these 2 houses can fit in very comfortably. I've heard what Mr. Ronald says, but I do think that this is a good application. Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Chairman. I went on this site visit this afternoon, and this is a very large plot to put one house on. By building the 2 houses, you're providing an extra home for a family within the community. Land for building on is at a premium at this time, and I think they have put a lot of thought into this, and the fact that they are going to live in one of these houses says that they will want it to be right for themselves, let alone anybody else. And I will support this application because I think it's a good one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to say anything? If not, it's been moved and seconded. Can I see all those in favour, please? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you again. If we can swap people. And so thank you very much for coming, and we'll move on to the next item. Okay, I think we're ready to go again. So this is item 5.4, which is 46 Broadgate in Beeston. This is an application to construct a single-storey rear extension, rear balcony and patio area. Mr Dawson, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair. There are no late items in this application. Single-storey extension with a patio and a balcony. The brick-built extension replacing the existing glass house. The balcony above the single-storey extension will be extended by 1.2 metres in depth, but with a timber screen on the north-east side of the balcony. The patio has been amended to create a level access. We believe the site is sufficient distance away to maintain privacy and not have detrimental impact on amenity. This is covered in more detail at 6.3.1 and 6.3.2. And we think the design is acceptable and does not represent a disproportionate distance to the property. Fairly straightforward. We're happy with this. Recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we have one speaker who is Mr Griffiths, I think the microphone's already on, so I don't need to ask you to press the button on the right.
Okay.
But the same as the previous cases, you've got 3 minutes, and I'll give you a prompt towards the end. Feel free to take your mask off whilst you're speaking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you for considering our planning application. Since purchasing our property in 2013, we've spent a lot of time, energy and money restoring and renovating what is a beautiful home. When we bought it, it was a dilapidated shell that had sat empty for 8 years. We've turned it back into a family home and added much needed mod cons like central heating, functioning kitchen and bathrooms, and completely rewiring the property. At the rear of our home, there's a glass lean-to that we've tried to repair over the years and spent approximately £5,000 replacing the roof and the glass. However, even after doing so, there are leaks and damp in the walls. The current balcony leaks and is uninsulated and requires significant work to make good, and even if we undertook these works, we would still have no sight of our garden from the house, other than that from the children's playroom. By building our proposed extension, we're able to replace all of the dilapidated elements at the rear and gain access and views of our garden. Throughout the planning process, we've always been conscious that our direct neighbour has significant sentimental ties to our home, as she was born in it, and it was her uncle's home until he died. We have sought her thoughts throughout this process, and as she has written to you, she had some reservations. These reservations have been discussed and her comments taken on board, and she has written to you that she and her family support our application. I hope that the committee can see that we are passionate about preserving the integrity of our home. We've been very careful not to remove any of the character that was in the property when we bought it. Sorry, my wife's written on my road. I'd like permission to be granted so that we can finish the job that we started 8 years ago. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. If you'd like to take a seat on the row behind. Thank you. I will move the recommendation, which is to grant planning permission. That's on page 106.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions or observations? No, it sounds, I agree. I think this is a very straightforward, very nice application. It's always wonderful when people actually work with their neighbours, and so thank you very much. We'll move straight to the vote. Can I see all those in favour? And that is granted unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll swap people again and we move on to item 5.5, which is Broad Oak Farm in Strelly, but we'll just wait for people to come in. Or in fact, I'm not sure if anyone is coming in or if we're just having it read. Yeah. So I'll ask Mr Dawson firstly to introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of the soils again on site earlier on. Very small scale extension, single storey and 2-storey rear extension, single storey infill to the side, and replace the front hedge with stone wall and gates. The original dwellings already had single storey side extension, a porch, conservatory and detached garage. Proposed additions to the dwelling together with these proposed extensions will result in an approximate increase of 69% of the volume. We've had no BSc submitted. So in line with policy with Greenbelt, we're duty bound to recommend refusal of the application. However, we don't believe there are any other significant issues at all whatsoever. And just for clarity, when we discussed on the site and I said that extension is next to a neighbouring house, it's not, it's next to a field. There's no house next door to the north. But we have no issues whatsoever. It's a purely planning policy in terms of Greenbelt and BSc. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, I shall move the recommendation. which is set out on page 118, which is to refuse planning permission.
I second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we'll open it for debate. Councillor Owen, you asked for this to come to the agenda, so do you want to speak first? Oh,
Sorry.
oh, sorry, we have a speaker. I beg your pardon. Yes, because Miss Evans is going to read the letter. Sorry, my mistake. So the applicant didn't come, but they've submitted a written statement. I was asked if I would agree to that being done. I said yes. I hope everyone's okay with that. And Miss Evans will read it to us. I beg your pardon.
Okay. This is a written representation by Mr M Yarlett in connection with the planning application. I would like to thank the committee for allowing me to make this written representation. In 2016, my family and I moved into Pinfold Cottage in Strelly Village, which we rented until very recently. When Broad Oak Farmhouse came up for sale, we jumped at the chance to enable us to stay in the village where we have established good friends and neighbours. Unfortunately, the previous owner, due to ill health, had let the property deteriorate and nothing has been renewed or maintained, including the boundaries and hedges for some time. Nevertheless, we felt that we could make a difference and create a comfortable family home. Our plan was to extend the property and renew boundaries, and to that end we submitted a planning application to construct an extension at the rear, replacing a large conservatory and linking the house with a roof to the garage to create a utility room. A further proposal to replace the porch has now been removed from the application description in line with the Conservation Advisor's comments. The planning officers had advised that adding volume would destroy the openness of the green belt. However, there seemed to be no design objections to our proposals as there was in no way change in the profile of the property as viewed from the roadway. We were keen to keep the front elevation as unchanged as possible. We also submitted a proposal to construct a ball stone front boundary wall with a new hedge and single gateway, retaining the grass verge and reducing the number of openings to improve the means of access, the parking facilities and manoeuvring in the front driveway and to reduce the potential conflict with vehicles exiting the public house car park. The whole purpose of the new front boundary treatment was to improve our privacy, vehicle safety and to mitigate some of the noise and activity in the beer garden of the Broad Oak Public House, which is directly opposite Broad Oak Farmhouse. We are confident that the materials that we intend to use in extending and creating a new front boundary will be of the highest quality and in keeping with materials and styles already in existence with the conservation area. We are also happy to accept conditions that relate to the materials and planting where this is considered necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. So back to Councillor Owen. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I was approached by the agent for the applicant saying that they wanted to submit an application for this extension, but officers had advised that it would be rejected. And we know the reasons why it would be rejected. Mr. Dawson has explained that. So I suggested to them they did submit the application and that I, as the ward councillor, or one of the two ward councillors, would ask that it be brought to committee so that the planning committee can determine the application. We've had several of these types of application in recent months where it's contrary to green belt policy, but members have judged that there's been no adverse effect whatsoever on the green belt. And I think that is the situation with this particular application before us tonight. If you turn to page 116, Chairman, paragraph 6.3.2, the roof style of the two-storey rear extension is considered to match the style of the original dwelling as it's hipped, so that's in keeping. The is acceptable. At the rear, it would not be readily visible from the street scene. It's considered that the design of the proposed single two-storey rear extension and infill side extension achieve an acceptable level of design. The next paragraph says the roof tiles would match the existing dwelling. The boundary wall is going to be of Bulwell stone, which we've heard in the statement that's been read out, and that is typical of many of the stone walls in the area and indeed across the whole of North Nottingham and that part of the county. They've asked for the stone wall, as you heard, because of the potential for noise disturbance from the Broad Oak pub, which is immediately opposite. And I knew the previous owner of the property, and he often did have complaints about noise from the public house, and that had to be dealt with, so I can well understand that. If you look at the end of paragraph 6.4.1, you can see the windows are facing south. It's therefore considered that the proposal will not have any significant impact on these immediate neighbouring properties. I think that's a bit of an understatement, because as we stood in the garden, we couldn't see any neighbouring properties. All we could see were open fields at the back there. And so the last point I would make is 6.4.3. The impact on other neighbouring properties is considered acceptable. Well, I've already made that point, that there's no impact whatsoever. So I would ask committee to deal with this application in the way that they've dealt with similar applications in other parts of the borough where they've been in Greenbelt, but the only factor that's caused the recommendation for refusal is a breaching of the percentage extension rule. So I hope members will support the planning application and not reject it.
Thank you very much, thank you. And it seems to me that the whole reason for having this committee is that we can exercise common sense. And I do agree with Councillor Owen here that this is one where there will be no impact on anybody else, and I think we can grant permission. I've got Councillor Carr and Councillor Grindell.
Yes, this is one of those occasions where, like with, I know this happened to 2 properties in Nuttall, I recall, and very much like the last application on Broadgate, it's actually somebody that's actually taken a property that could potentially fall into disrepair and actually bring it up to standard as a home for a family, and the fact that it's in the Greenbelt is one thing, but it is in a conservation area. So as far as I can tell from the report, all of the requirements of the conservation area are being adhered to. So I would actually support granting permission for this application.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Grindell.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, actually, when we read this, when we first received this application, I thought obviously we have to think about these things deeply. Councillor Owen is totally correct. In fact, because when we went there today, in fact, to be honest, I didn't think I was in the building I was supposed to be looking at. So I'm quite happy for this to go through, and it's not in any way, shape or form in anybody's way, and I hope that everyone else will support this application tonight instead of rejecting it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to say anything? No, in which case the recommendation is to refuse planning permission. Can I see those in favour of refusing planning permission? And those against? So that is unanimously rejected. If I can read Mr Dawson's handwriting. So I'll move a recommendation that we grant planning permission subject to conditions regarding to time, material and plans. Is that specifying which plans? So I'll move that recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. And can I see all those in favour? Thank you. So that is carried. So planning permission is granted. Thank you very much. So we then just got the noting items. Items dealt with under delegated powers. I'll go through these page by page. Please shout if you've got one you want to question. Anything on page 126? 127? 128? Yeah, Councillor Carr.
Just to indicate the issues that we've got with going back to the original Marlborough Rose application, the top one, which is the Cloisters, Beaton Nottingham. This is a property that was a residential property which the applicant wants to turn into quite a substantially large HMO. Just to point out, this is immediately adjacent to 225 purpose-built student flats that have just been built. So an indication also that building purpose-built ones doesn't necessarily mean that HMOs are going to stop in other residences.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anything else on page 128? 129? 130? 131? 132? And 133. Yeah, thank you very much. Well, in that case, I'll declare the meeting closed at 8:19. We did have a little discussion beforehand. Mr. Dawson put down 8:45. I put down 8:15. I win. Thank you all very much. Okay, thank you all very much.